So, hello everyone, and thanks for being here. This is Julien Beranger, Head of Communications at iexec, and I'm Wassim Bendella. I work as a business developer. And today we're both very happy to be here on stage to talk about iexec, a startup that is building a blockchain-based decentralized marketplace for cloud resources. And just to have an idea, who in this room has already heard of iexec? If you can just please raise hands. All right, so quite a lot. And for those who haven't, well, I hope that by the end of this talk, you'll find it just as exciting as we do. So, as you all know, Ethereum is a blockchain that allows developers to build and deploy decentralized applications. And Ethereum is so innovative because it made smart contracts possible. And this has gathered a big community of developers and nurtured innovation, so much that today we count over 1,000 dApps running on Ethereum. The smart contracts of these dApps are stored on the Ethereum blockchain, and Ethereum's virtual machine is responsible for their execution. Virtual machine, of course, I mean the miners and the validators. But while Ethereum's virtual machine is excellent for simple transactions and business logic, it struggles quite a lot when it comes to performing heavy computing at a reasonable cost and speed. And things will only get worse because there are a lot of projects that made an ICO recently but have not yet delivered their products. And once these projects start delivering their products, the computational demand will be so high, it's very likely that Ethereum will not be able to keep up. And that running intensive dApps can cost a fortune. And this is why we see iexec as a complementary brick to Ethereum technology. Why? Because iexec allows off-chain computing. And by off-chain computing, I mean the dApps need to be able to do their heavy computing off-chain, so not on the Ethereum blockchain, but then bring the results back on-chain for verification and validation. And iexec allows developers to do exactly this. And with virtual reality, artificial intelligence, or IoT, all utilizing advanced smart contracts, the need for off-chain computing will only increase and become inevitable in this field. So how does iexec make possible off-chain computing? Well, by building a market network for cloud resources. So usually we see businesses as pipes with value flowing in one direction only, so from the producer to the end user. If we take the cloud industry, for example, a company like Amazon Web Services flows in one direction only, so from the producer, Amazon, to the end user. And what is fundamentally different about new businesses like iexec is the way value flows. So today in the world of networks, there's a whole range of different flows between different participants, and iexec does not control this flow, it just enables it and makes it happen. So you may view iexec as a matchmaking system. It's a market that's trying to have supply meet demand to create some of the most valuable transactions possible. By aggregating more and more participants on the supply and demand side, iexec is able to use data to filter through these sites and then make the right supply meet the right demand. So in other words, iexec owns no servers, but allow those who own servers, and in our network we call them workers, to meet those who need computing power. And this matchmaking system is orchestrated by iexec in a decentralized way. So you may ask, why do we even need a decentralized cloud marketplace for cloud services? Well, today the cloud industry is very centralized and has many flows inherent to its centralized nature. For example, today the market is dominated by big players like Amazon or Microsoft. And since HPC infrastructures are very complex and very expensive, the barriers of entry in this market are extremely high, especially for individuals like you and I. And what iexec does is that it creates a global and universal market that anyone can join and transact in. So if you're a gamer, for example, you have a great machine, but you only play video games 2 hours a day, the rest of the time is just sitting there idle. With iexec, you'll be able to plug your machine in our network and make profit by monetizing its computing capacity. Centralized data centers also raise some serious energy problems. For example, power and cooling in data centers cost more than the IT equipment they support. And iexec is more in favor of some eco-friendly solutions, which has led us to seal some strategic partnerships with cloud providers like Steamergy, Carnot Computing, or Cloud and Heat. Basically, what these companies do is that they distribute servers throughout cities at strategic places. So these servers are running computations for external applications, and this process usually is very intensive and generates a lot of heat that usually just dissipates. And in our case, these companies are able to recycle this heat and then use it to heat buildings, swimming pools, or even tap water. And finally, there are service disruptions. So it happened, for example, last year to Amazon, and has resulted in over $150 million of losses with websites like Expedia, Yahoo, or GitHub, unavailable for many hours. And due to iexec's decentralized nature, we have outage-tolerant protocols that make sure that the end user will receive its result no matter what. So how does blockchain fit into all of this? Well, iexec is a blockchain-based marketplace, which gathers many different types of participants. We have people providing applications, people providing computing power, whether it's CPU or GPU, and people providing data sets. And blockchain is particularly useful here because it allows to store and record all the transactions of value that are happening on the iexec network. And it's also the mechanism used to prove the contribution of different types of participants. For example, to prove that a worker did execute the computation it was asked to, and that the result it sent is indeed accurate and trustworthy. And on the iexec network, our token, RLC, circulates on all of this network and links these different types of participants. So just a few words on our token. Last year in April, iexec organized a token sale and issued RLC tokens. So RLC stands for runs on lots of computers, because your computations will indeed be run on a lot of different computers, and RLC is the unique way to access cloud resources on the iexec marketplace. So just to give you an example, if a fintech application needs to do some intensive computing, it will be buying CPU power in RLC, and the participant that provided this CPU power will receive RLC in exchange. Now, while traditional platforms like Uber or Airbnb take a 15 to 30% cut on transactions, iexec does not take any fees at all. So there are 0% fees when cloud resources are traded on the iexec marketplace. And even though we're creating a lot of value with our matchmaking algorithms, we envision transactions as peer-to-peer without iexec intervening in any way by taking a cut on transactions. Of course, as a crypto startup, our token is part of our business model. RLC is a utility token, and iexec does hold a reserve of it. But we also have in mind other ways of generating revenue, for example, by providing advanced financial services on cloud resources. But we will disclose these a bit further on our journey. So since our ICO, well, we have delivered on time what was outlined on our white paper. So last November, we released our version 1. Thanks to this version of iexec, decentralized applications now have a simple and practical way to reach off-chain computing resources. So for now, these resources are offered for free by iexec and are therefore centralized up until our V2 release. And actually today, we're only a few months before our V2 release, which is the most awaited component of iexec, because iexec will move from centralization to decentralization. And V2 marks the release of our cloud marketplace, where users will be able to launch intensive off-chain computing through a graphical interface or an API. And another interesting thing to note about this version is that it will include and introduce a payment scheme. So this payment scheme will allow payments from users to providers. So for providers, whether it's cloud providers, local providers, or just individuals like you and I, this is the very beginning of doing business by monetizing our resources. And finally, after V2, there will be 3 more major releases that will keep us busy until 2021. These releases include advanced features for enterprises, reaching true supercomputing capabilities with GPU, and finally, tackling some research challenges in the fields of IoT and edge computing. And now, I will let my colleague Julien go into more details about these recent releases.
Okay, thanks Wassim. Hi everyone. So yeah, we're really excited about this upcoming release of the version 2. People will be allowed to bid and ask for off-chain computation, and this is something we've never seen before. So the release is planned for May this year. Let me say a few words about the version 1. This is what we call the dApp store. where you can see all registered and available applications on the network. The SDK is available for you to try. You can find several tutorials on Katacoda, so you have nothing to install. It takes 5 minutes to get the idea of how it works. So on this version, you can use iexec's private pool of workers for free, so that you're comfortable to test things out. And I also want to mention that our team is available 24/7 to provide engineering support in case if you need while you're testing the SDK. And you will see that it's super easy to deploy an application on iexec. And because we want to make things easy for developers, iexec now supports Dockerized apps. So right now, anyone can use one of those famous open source applications, so TensorFlow, R, Blender, etc. So iexec really fits the needs of compute-intensive applications, as long as they run in a batch mode. I mean, in a non-interactive mode for the moment. And there will be many others. We're going to launch a programming bounty program where we will list the most wanted apps, plugins, scripts, so that developers can directly contribute. So those are sort of in-house applications in the sense that we've deployed them ourselves. But one of the most important things to keep in mind is that when a smart contract needs to launch some off-chain computation, then iexec is the solution you want to check. So now let's have a look at what other developers in the community came up with. So 15 new applications are currently developing with iexec. We launched what we call the DApp Challenge to support the development of those apps. So we had 40 candidates, which is already extremely encouraging from an adoption standpoint. So the jury selected 15 projects on the basis of innovation, impact, feasibility, and background of the team. And so now they're sharing the equivalent of $150,000. We were really impressed by the quality and diversity of projects. So we had projects in AI, data analysis, supply chains, gaming, voting, and so forth. So now we're following up with those projects, mainly helping them deliver their products. So I just wanted to quote 3 of them. So Cerebrum is a decentralized platform for crowdsourced machine learning. OpenMole is a computational engine for custom simulation experiments. And Web Sensors are artificial intelligence-based oracles for smart contracts. So I like those projects because they directly addressing real-life problems. So they're really good examples of what you can do with iexec, and you can do it too. So let's see how to deploy your application on iexec. So this is exactly what François did during the live coding session we had here in the museum. So you would start with a template that is directly usable. Then when you type this command iexec deploy, you have the smart contract part that goes on Ethereum, and your binary files go to the workers network. Then this is the third step. The user joins the game. He actually pays in RLC when he submits a task that is executed by the workers. And finally, the user gets the result back. So that's the basic workflow for a developer. So let's have a look at the whole infrastructure we built. On the left, you have things happening on-chain. So a user makes a transaction, so an interaction with a smart contract that we will call a work order. That triggers the job submission process. On the right, you can see the off-chain part with one single pool of workers represented on this picture. When the version 2 is out, you will have many of them, pools with one scheduler per each pool. And so the scheduler basically dispatches the works to the workers, and then the result is pushed on the blockchain through a set of Oracle contracts that plays the role of the interface between the on-chain and off-chain world. And this is why we need what we call the PoCO. It stands for Proof of Contribution. So this is the consensus protocol iexec uses to verify the result of an off-chain computation. So it relies on a mix between staking and reputation, which itself is based on your computation history. It's going to be ready in a few weeks from now. So Adrien is here. So if you want to know more, if you want to know the details on the proof contribution, you can directly ask Adrien. He already published 2 articles about it, and the 3rd of the series will be published in a few days. So it's an important part of the marketplace because it will allow more workers to join the network. And until that, we're gradually opening the network to several resource providers, like we just did with Steamergy, Carnot Computing, Cloud and Heat, with which we had the very first invoice priced in RLC. So yeah, again, we're really excited about the release of the marketplace itself, because it will allow the network to be fully open and accessible for everyone to participate. So some people would start earning some value, earning some RLC, executing works, and others would start make money with their application accessible on the App Store. So I cannot conclude without saying a few words about SGX. So it's yeah, so it's a very recent technology. It was first released in 2015. So iexec is one of the most advanced projects in the crypto space on this specific topic. And I can tell you that things are moving very fast. There will be some major announcements before the end of the month, so stay tuned. And yes, it's part of the fascinating R&D side of the project. So yeah, iexec will use SGX enclaves basically to protect the application from malicious workers. It creates a bubble in which you can process sensitive data and offer a strong level of security to all participants of the network. So the marketplace and the proof of contribution actually works without SGX, but we want to anticipate this trend, and we're really proud to be able to share the result of those researches with the community. So let's keep in touch. The website is iex.ec. We'll be celebrating the first birthday of the RLC tokens in April, and again, the version 2 release is planned for May this year. So if you want to know all the details on the consensus protocol, you can ask Adrien, who's here, or François, or any of the team. There's 16 of us here. So, and if you need more information about SGX, you can ask Lei, who's here, who's in charge of this part. So just remember that that now there is no limits in the design of decentralized applications. Thank you. What is fog computing? So yeah, it's actually this paradigm that we want to say, give access to everyone. So let's say you have a Lambda user that uses an application on his mobile or desktop, and the data are processed, for example, in the heater of the neighbor, for instance. So that's basically the idea, but maybe that's the idea. And also maybe I can add that we know that it's important to have data close to the applications. So we're sort of optimizing all this.
What would you say in response to people who are saying that distributed cloud services are actually non-viable because, for example, organizations like AWS have such advantages in terms of economies of scale and stuff that they can easily price out, for example, the distributed cloud services?
Yeah, I mean, so those companies really could become server providers of the network and provide their
But what's the incentive for them to do that? What's the incentive for those companies to
be on the platform?
Yeah.
Well, they would. In fact, they would because we never intervene in the pricing. So those companies can join the network and accept RLC and participate to the network. Why not? But as a server provider, for instance, as an individual, you could sort of set the price a little bit lower than those companies and drive the price low.
So there are a lot of smaller providers, some cloud providers, and with iexec they will have access to a new pool of users, which right now they don't have access to, especially that we're not taking any fees. So for them it's just a win-win situation, it's more customers. And another thing is that today there are a lot of idle resources everywhere. Today and very soon we'll have, even fridges will have CPU power, and this power will not be used to its fullest potential. So with decentralized cloud computing, all of these resources will be able to be gathered and used on the internet. So thank you very much for being here.